In this exercise tutorial, we are going to be going through a stretching routine with the goal of achieving arm reaching, in particular up overhead or past shoulder height. So in order to address all of the key areas that we need to stretch, it's good to know what are we trying to focus on. And in order to do that, it's good to know what all is involved as far as structures involved with overhead reaching. And there's really three main structures. The thoracic spine needs to be able to extend. The shoulder blade, the large flat bone on the back, needs to be able to rotate upwards and retract, as well as externally rotate, so the outside actually needs to tip outward. And to a lesser degree, you do need a little bit of elevation. The reason I pull out those in particular movements of the shoulder blade is because in most cases, after damage to your brain or your spinal cord, all the muscles that pull that shoulder blade forward and cause it to stay rotated downward are usually extremely tight. As well as at the arm bone, you really need good external rotation in a few different positions, because there's a lot of muscles that attach to the arm bone that rotate that arm inward, and they're all at a little bit of a different angle. So it's not really good enough just to stretch the arm into external rotation in one position, but you really need to change that arm position with each stretch that we do. So we're going to go through that today. One thing you will notice in this series is that I use a lot of tools or props. And the reason I'm doing that is because in most cases, there's a lot of weakness in the arm due to hemiplegia, and you really have to have things to kind of hold other parts of that upper quadrant in place. I use an elbow immobilizer quite a bit because for a lot of people, it's hard to keep the elbow straight. And for some of the stretches we do, you really need to have that elbow straight. I also have my hands strapped to a lot of different things. That's also really critical because the forearm position is important for a lot of the stretches. So sometimes we want the hands to say palm facing up, sometimes palm facing down. And in any of those cases, if you have weakness in your arm, it's really hard to maintain those positions. So I do use a lot of tools, and I highly recommend, they're usually pretty cheap and you can find most of them on Amazon, but I highly recommend that you do that. I will have a list of those videos, if you're watching this on YouTube, in the description below. If you're watching this as part of the membership program, it'll be listed in the text box next to this video. So now let's go ahead and dive into the stretching routine. So for this exercise, what we're doing is we're stretching out the front of the shoulder. We're going to do this in two different positions. Now you will notice I have the arm immobilizer on to keep the elbow straight. It is ideal for this stretch to have the arm straight, and in most cases, for those of you that are watching this tutorial, you can't keep your arm straight. So that's why I have this elbow immobilizer on. So we're stretching out the entire front side of this shoulder. So I'm going to do it with my arm directly out to the side like a T, and then up a little bit higher, more of like a Y position. So we're going to do this laying face down. You're going to use your opposite arm to kind of push your body, rotating it away from the arm a little bit to deepen the stretch on that arm. I always recommend that you roll over your uninvolved shoulder just for comfort. It'll be a little bit more comfortable when you're rolling from your back to your stomach if you do it over the uninvolved shoulder. Now you want to hold all these stretches a minimum of 30 to 60 seconds. And again, you're going to feel this all along the front of your shoulder. And then use your arm if you need to help move it into that Y position. And then using your uninvolved arm again, you're going to rotate away from that arm. Again, you're going to feel this all along the front of your shoulder. Hold it 30 to 60 seconds. And down. And again, hold it 30 to 60 seconds. So for this exercise, what we're doing is stretching out the front of the shoulder. Now the elbow does need to be bent for this one because what we're trying to do is externally rotate this arm and move it out to the side. So the best way for a lot of people to do this is just to do this one laying face down. You'll see other variations of this online, against the wall, things like that. But for those of you that have hemiplegia, it's really hard to hold your arm in those positions. So laying on your stomach is the best position to do this in. Again, you want your arm to be like kind of what we call like a W position. So you can see it's kind of shaped like a W when you are laying on your stomach. So that's a really critical component of this stretch. And then once you're laying on your stomach, you're going to use your opposite arm to kind of rotate your body. And then what that does is it kind of uses the table to actually help stretch that arm. So start laying on your side and then get yourself onto your stomach. You can use your other hand to kind of pull this arm, if this is the involved arm, kind of up to the side, so that it's in that W position. And then use your other arm to rotate your body. Again, it's really common also to have your kind of shoulders shrugged up towards your ears. So really make sure those shoulders are down and as far away from your ear as possible as you do that rotation. Then rotate back. And then again. Holding it 30 to 60 seconds. Rotate back. So for this exercise, what we're doing is we're trying to stretch that shoulder blade, that flat bone on the back, towards upward rotation, so everything that's pulling that shoulder blade down, and a little bit towards what we call external rotation. So for this exercise, the critical components are that you have to be laying on something, a towel roll will work, or something down the middle of your back to kind of what we say like float those shoulder blades so that they have the ability to move and stretch the structures that are pulling it forward. And then the setup is also very important. So I highly recommend having the elbow immobilizer on, especially if you have a lot of weakness in your arm, you're someone that has hemiplegia, and definitely hand strapped to a dowel rod with palms facing up, a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Those are the critical components to really make sure that you're stretching those structures, again, that are pulling that shoulder blade forward and down. Remember, we need it to rotate upwards and we need it to kind of tilt or rotate backwards a little bit. So you really need those shoulder blades to be free, or kind of like what I call floating. So again, you're gonna keep those arms at that 45-degree angle, kind of out to the side just a little bit. Then you're gonna reach all the way back. Again, the important part is that those shoulder blades are floating so that they can move. They need to be able to rotate and move backwards just a little bit. And then hold that 30 to 60 seconds. And back down. And again, back up. Hold that 30 to 60 seconds. So this is another shoulder stretch. Some of you are not going to be able to do this because you're extremely tight, but some of you that aren't as tight, this is a really good way to work on that upward rotation of that shoulder blade. I'm going to give a few different variations of this, so don't worry if you can't do this one. If your arm is coming forward, then this is not a good stretch for you. You want to just set that dowel rod up, arm again strapped, and elbow mobilizer preferably, so you can really isolate stretching that shoulder blade. And we're trying to rotate that shoulder blade upward. Again, some of you are not going to be able to do this. If it's coming forward, then you're missing out on this stretch. So definitely do the other variations that I will be showing. Hold it 30 to 60 seconds. Again, you should feel a good stretch all the way down through here. What we're doing for this exercise, we're stretching everything really out on the outside of your body and trying to primarily stretch everything that pulls that shoulder blade down. So we're trying to work on restoring the ability to upward rotate that shoulder blade by stretching everything that's pulling it down. So there's a few different ways to do that. This is for anyone who doesn't have a whole lot of arm strength. It's an easier position to do this in because you can just use your body weight, and you want to be a little bit of distance away from whatever you choose to use to set your arm on. I don't recommend sitting on your bed. I highly recommend a mat table just because it is good to have a firm surface, especially for stretching. And then find something that you can set your elbow up on that's relatively soft, or something that you could pad the top of. And then you're just kind of dropping your body in towards whatever the surfaces that you have your elbow on. Really just trying to stretch or elongate everything on that side. You can't see it, but your shoulder blade is kind of rotating upward for this, and you'll feel it. You'll feel a stretch all the way down the side of your body when you do this. And again, you just want to hold it 30 to 60 seconds. It actually should feel pretty good because on most of us, the muscles on the sides of our body are really tight, so it just kind of lengthens everything. And again, just holding it 30 to 60 seconds. So this is a shoulder extension stretch. What we're really isolating here is stretching that bicep and that pec for this exercise. So for any of you that don't have good grip strength, I highly recommend you strap your hand to the dowel rod. Even if you are someone that maybe you have an involuntary grip, I still recommend that you strap your hand to the pole so that you can allow the rest of the arm to relax a little bit more without having to think about holding onto that dowel. And then again, palm facing out, so you can see my palm, my arm is kind of opened out. And then you're just going to use your other hand, your uninvolved hand, to push that arm back. And you just want to hold that stretch. Now you should feel this all along the front of your shoulder and along the front of your arm. And some of you might even feel it down into your forearm. But again, you just want to push it back and hold that stretch 30 to 60 seconds. So for this exercise, what we're doing is stretching external rotation. Remember what I said, very, very critical component of overhead reaching. You got to be able to externally rotate this arm after a stroke or a brain injury. Most of the time, a lot of the structures that keep that arm rotated inward are very tight. You'll notice I do this in several different positions. So you do want to do it with your elbow by your side. And then you slowly want to move that elbow out. That just stretches different muscles that are part of that tight system, that are all tight, that pull that arm inward and really limit overhead reaching. So again, you're going to rotate that arm externally, moving that elbow out. So doing it in a few different positions with the elbow. So again, elbow by the side. Using the cane to push that hand out, hold it 30 to 60 seconds. Move the elbow out to the side a little bit. Again, rotate it out. Hold that 30 to 60 seconds. Move the elbow out a little bit more. And again, rotate that out. And again, as high as you can go. Again, working that shoulder external rotation. So what we're doing here is a latissimus stretch. The key thing for this exercise is that you do have a strap around your elbows. You want your elbows to stay in and you need something to keep your hands out. So I like a Pilates ring because it's really lightweight. If you have weakness in your hand, definitely strap your hand to the ring when you do this exercise because you do want to be able to relax. And so if you have to think about holding onto something, it might be a little bit harder for you to relax. So strap around the elbows to keep the elbows in, something in your hands to keep your hands a little bit slightly further out. And then again, let me show that to you one more time. Once you're in that position, you're just really letting the arms fall over your head. And then you just want to hold it 30 to 60 seconds. Try and stay nice and relaxed. You might feel a stretch all the way down the side of your body for this one. So for this exercise, what we're doing is we're stretching all the muscles that kind of keep that shoulder blade rotated downwards and keep it forward. So you want to have the dowel rod and your hand strapped to it. Very, very important because your arms need to stay apart. A lot of times people want to keep their arm rotated in because it is so tight. So first and foremost, the most important thing is the setup. So dowel rod strapped, hand strapped to a dowel rod, and hands on the dowel rod about shoulder width apart. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to set your elbows up on the back of a chair and kind of press your chest towards the floor, holding it a minimum of 30 to 60 seconds. And relax. And again, holding it 30 to 60 seconds. And relax, and again, pressing that chest towards the floor and holding it 30 to 60 seconds, and relax.